Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm really excited about this session, building an ecosystem of inclusive communities for LGBTQ people to thrive and grow. It is my great pleasure to introduce to you our almighty host, our CEO and founder of DIFEST. He is a recipient of 3 awards. Rudolph Vincent has a strong business acumen with a vision to connect business communities globally. He is currently based in Toronto with his wife and twins, a boy and girl, and he will be taking you from here. Over to you, Rudy.
Thank you so much, Heather. And whichever part of the world you've logged in, a warm welcome to one of the most exclusive sessions of DIFEST Global 2021. Such an important topic, building an ecosystem of inclusive communities for LGBTQ people to thrive and grow. We have amongst us 2 wonderful and passionate guests who have such diverse backgrounds. Both have decided to lead their lives with a mission and a purpose. A mission to make the corporate world, the sporting world, and our society a better place, a more inclusive place, and a much more accommodating place to live, to work, and to thrive. People are tired, especially people of color and members of the LGBTQ community. Everyone's tired of carrying the burden of speaking up and fighting for justice. If I were to quote Dr. Lily Jampol, stories and people's voices are also data, not just hard numbers. Our job is to represent the underrepresented. So without taking up much of your time, let me introduce to you our wonderful panelists for today. We have amongst us Neelam Jain, the founder and CEO of Periphery India, and Martin Stark, the founder and CEO of the World Gay Boxing Championships Limited. Martin and Neelam, welcome to DIFEST Global 2021. I'm going to have the 2 of you introduce yourself. I don't want to do it because it'll sound very theoretical. So the 2 of you are driven by a mission. The 2 of you are driven by a purpose. I'd like to have the 2 of you introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit more about what you do. Neelam, if you would like to start with you.
Sure. Thank you so much for this amazing and warm welcome. And again, it's an honor to be here. Thank you for thinking about us and for having us in such an amazing event, a festival of sorts. So my name is Neelam Jain, and I'm the founder and CEO of Periphery. So Periphery started out as a very humble, small startup in a small town in India called very close to Chennai. We started with a vision to create equal and inclusive job opportunities for the transgender community, and that's what we really do. Over the years, which has been about 4 years of Periphery, I think it's been an amazing journey, not just for me, for the organization, and for our learning towards, what we're aiming for. So I'm super happy to be here, and it's been a great year despite everything that's going on, and I think being a part of this and sharing some of the things that we've learned in the last couple of years is going to be really amazing for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Martin.
Hi everybody, I'm Martin Stark from Sydney, Australia. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land where I currently am, the Camaragal people, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. I would like to extend my respects to all Indigenous, Torres Strait Islander and First Nations people. My day job is I work in inclusion diversity. I'm a keynote speaker, inclusion champion, courage champion. My real passion is for boxing and making a difference. I started boxing a few years ago. I want to give back to the community, so I set up the not-for-profit World Gay Boxing Championships Limited, WGBC. I set up the world's first straight-friendly LGBTQI+ inclusive boxing organisation. Want to change the sport, make it more inclusive. And how do I do that? By sharing my story, sharing my passion with the sport, and inviting other people to join me in the organisation. Together we can make a difference. sport brings people and communities together, and that's what communities are about, people.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Martin. And wow, such a pleasure to be moderating this panel. Thank you so much once again for being a part of DIFEST. Let me begin by asking the two of you. I mean, you have worked with Fortune 100 companies. What really drove you to this mission? It's for any of you to answer that. Martin.
I started out a few years ago by sharing my story on LinkedIn. I left the corporate world, took a bit of a sabbatical, and soon just started connecting with other people. And I started sharing my passion for boxing, my passion for the LGBTQI plus community, and making a difference. And I was really one of those people who thought, I can say something, so I will start saying something. I have the words courage and fear nothing tatted on my back. And by sharing what I believe, it just created so many opportunities for me and other people. And I firmly believe in speaking up and speaking out, because hatred is never far away. But when you say something, you connect with others, you connect with other people in the community. When you have a strong vision, you have a strong purpose, it attracts the attention of other people who want to make a difference and support you in that journey. So really, it just started out. I never set out to do this. It just happened by contributing my time and sharing my purpose and my story.
That's amazing. And Neelam?
Yes. So I think my journey began because of the organization that I was working with. So I was fortunate enough to be a part of an organization that was in all ways inclusive of the LGBTQ community. And when I joined the organization, I was fresh out of college, a new grad, had no idea about a lot of things, including some of the communities and their lives as well. And I remember, apart from my day job, which was to be a financial analyst, we would always try and find ways of doing other things, right? So one of my colleagues told me, hey, listen, I think we can be a part of this ally group, learn a couple of things and see how best we can contribute. And I was like, okay, I mean, let's just go ahead and see what best can we do. And I remember as we started attending more of those sessions, and in one of those is when I saw a couple of transgender people who were invited into the organization to talk about their journey. And for me, it was actually very unreal, because here in India, one of the places where we often see trans people is either on the streets, they're begging. We see them across in the buses, beaches, an extremely vulnerable situation. But so then to see somebody on the stage talking just like any of us, right? I think it really opened my eyes to a lot of things. And while I started from a place of sympathy, I think my journey has really evolved. So that's when it really started. And, the idea came into my mind that why is it that, it's so disproportionate. The socioeconomic situation of the trans community in India is extremely marginalized. And so we started working on a couple of things within the organization first, where I was an employee, started pitching for ideas. And I realized that I eventually started spending a lot more time doing my extra work than my day work. So it was the right time to make the move. And I started my journey of periphery. That's how it really happened.
Absolutely. I mean, passion drives purpose, right?
Yep.
Absolutely. So, Martin, I mean, how do biases keep LGBTQ people from, from participating in different sports? I mean, we all have biases, but then when it especially comes to the sporting world, I mean, you don't hear a lot about the LGBTQ community participating. I mean, what are the biases that people tend to carry?
So I think the first thing is, how are those biases manifested? If it's in the case of homophobic, transphobic remarks and comments, you're less likely to want to participate in sport, go along to your local gym, community club. There's also very much around fear of being rejected and not being accepted for who you are. I didn't come out of the closet until I was 27 because I really feared what other people would think, and I didn't truly accept myself. There are biases in rounds of, well, there's a study in 2019 that the EU conducted, 5,500 LGBTQI plus sporting participants, 90% considered homophobia, transphobia, etc. a problem in sport. Of those participants, 16% had had some negative experience. It could have been online harassment, verbal harassment, but what was more concerning is that 20% of those 16% have been physically attacked. So the psychological safety and physical safety, not many people are going to show up if they know they're going to be physically harassed, they're going to be verbally harassed. And not many people have the courage to actually speak up and say, you know what, stop being racist, stop being homophobic. In the 2019-20 FA season in the UK, the soccer season, racist incidents increased by 53% and homophobic incidents by almost 100%. So hatred is never far away. And in terms of hatred in sport, it's on the increase, mainly through social media.
Ooh, that's not good. So, I mean, Martin, why is it so important to create spaces for LGBTQ athletes to work together? I mean, you've created the World Gay Boxing Championships. So why is it so important?
So think about the benefits that sport brings. Sport brings people and communities together. Sport is a great way of staying physically active. It's great for your mental health, creating a sense of belonging. But then imagine if you fear participating in sport. So one stat I'd like to share is just gay and bisexual men alone participate in team sports at half the rate of heterosexual men and attempt suicide at 5 times the rate. So just general bias in terms of the mental health in the LGBTQI plus community at large. So the stats are really bad, but behind the stat is a story. So if sport is supposed to be for everybody, absolutely, the only place that should be safe are people. Hatred should not be safe in sport, but it is, and it's rising.
Such a shame. Periphery, Neelam, has worked with a lot of employers. I mean, you've sensitized more than 20,000 employees in India. What are some of those common things about companies that are inclusive? I mean, there are a few companies who are doing things really well. I mean, what are those things that they're doing well?
So, firstly, just acknowledging what Martin said about hate, right? We can do a lot of things as organizations on paper, right from policies to these other benefits that we will provide. But the whole deep-rooted bias and the sort of anger that people have towards some of these communities is just not justified. It's not justified towards any person. So how do we actually remove that? How do we actually weed that out of our systems is one of the biggest learnings that I've had with organizations, and it's not easy. It's definitely not easy with the kind of representation we've been shown about different communities through our media, etc. There needs to be a lot more work that should be done. Having said that, trans-inclusive companies do a lot of things, right? Starting from something as basic as having equal opportunities, not just on their paper, but advocating it in all ways possible. Having non-discriminatory policies that are actually gender neutral and that are not going to say, okay, only women get discriminated or things like that. Having, being mindful of the fact that a lot of transgender people who want to go through their medical transitioning, who want to go through their, who are probably going through their hormone replacement therapies, etc., we're being mindful of those situations and creating programs and plans in place that would actually support that person. And it doesn't matter if it is just for one person in your organization. We often hear companies ask us that, hey, there's just one out trans person in my company. Do I really need to do all of this? I mean, if there are 10 people in a group and 9 of them want to eat pizza and the other person wants to eat rice, you still take care of everyone's food needs, right?
Absolutely.
So This is as basic as that. This is not even special accounting. This is just ensuring that we're giving people their basic things. So some people need different set of things, so we ensure that those are created. I think one of the things that organizations who are very authentically inclined towards trans inclusion do very well is keep evolving a lot, and they take a lot of this from the community. So the situations are changing in India, say the policies are changing, a lot of things are happening at this point, right? um, so one of the things that companies do very well is have a board of transgender people from diverse representation, again, because the trans community itself is so diverse, and have them be their go-to point for constantly talking about, hey, what's happening in the community, what's happening in the larger society, and taking those feedback and actually apply them in their guidelines. Because it's easy to probably take something off a paper, but then having real time conversations and understanding real time from people as to what the current realities are is going to be extremely important. And having a robust system where trans employees are supported, not just through an employee resource group, but having those safety groups where trans people can come together, where they have a safe space to really talk about each other. So a lot of those things are things that we see companies do.
So do you see a lot of companies now hiring trans workers, on the front line? Because a lot of companies tend to hire trans workers because they want to look at diversity as more of a feel good factor. But then are trans workers actually in the front line? Are they in sales?
Slowly, I think it has gotten better in the last 1.5, 2 years, especially after 2018, Section 377 getting decriminalized in India. It brought a whole lot of wave of opportunities even for the trans community, although trans as a gender was legally recognized since 2014. So I think situations have gotten better, but I do feel like there is a hesitation that companies have, because there's often a thought that they have, which is I can sensitize my internal, system, my people, but what about people outside? Are they going to be, are they going to be as inclusive, etc., etc., which is valid, but I feel like that again is not the most inclusive approach, right? If there is a transgender person who's great at sales, uh, the best thing that we can do for that person is to actually create an opportunity over there. So we're slowly nudging the companies, and I think there are many ways where we can ensure that our stakeholders, our customers outside are also sensitized, and often giving the power to the trans person to actually speak up for themselves. Um, in a safe environment, definitely, but sometimes companies try to have everything controlled, have everything sort of put in a safety net, which really does not happen. So we need to give the power back to the community, tell them that, hey, this is your space. We will do what we can best to ensure that there's a support environment, everything created, right from ensuring that, that there's probably a badge that says, this is my name and this is my pronouns, so call me by this, etc., etc., to sending like guidelines to all our clients, etc. Companies need to take that effort, but trust the person to actually make their own journey and decide things for themselves.
Martin, you had spoken about homophobia. I mean, what is the impact of homophobic language and harassment in sports?
So it comes down to, is it my problem to fix? So if somebody's going to be homophobic, do I then make the choice whether I stop participating in sport, stop going to the gym, and I have fewer opportunities in life in the sport that I love? And it is the impact on self-esteem, mental health, physical health. There was a study done in Victoria, which is a state within Australia, and they've shown that I think 50% of sporting participants in a team kind of felt it was meant to go along with making homophobic remarks, but when they realised the impact it would have, and nearly like 95% would say, of course we're going to welcome an LGBTQI plus teammate. Similar studies in the States have shown, when a teammate has come out, so the member of the LGBT, like might be a gay man in a straight team, they're overwhelmingly supported by their teammates. So It's about, we all want a sense of purpose. We want to feel that we want to belong. And I just want to go and play sport. That's all it is. I want to enjoy boxing, I want to enjoy training, I want to enjoy competing without fear and harassment, and have the same opportunities as everybody else. That's what it comes down to.
Absolutely. I mean, so well said, Martin. So, I mean, having said that, I mean, how do you see the corporate world, working closely with the sporting world, to make sports, a fair place, a fair sport, and a fair ground for everyone to play? I mean, Neelam comes from the corporate side, you come from the sporting side of the world. How do you see the two synergize, for society and for every sportsman?
I think sport is often promoted at that elite level, the professional athletes, the people who are going to win an Olympic gold medal or a world championship medal. But real sport, as I call it, is that grassroots community sport. Most people might play soccer at a weekend, they might go to their local gym, their boxing club, swimming pool. That's where sport really happens. So I think corporations use your inclusion diversity budget, your marketing budget, to just pump money into grassroots sport, help clubs develop, really help LGBTQI plus people feel welcome, but at the same time, make everybody feel welcome in sport. But also step up when a sporting star makes a homophobic comment. An example here in Australia, one of the biggest sports stars is Israel Folau, who's playing rugby league. He made comments on Instagram along the lines of like, homosexuals are going to burn in hell. Ended up not playing rugby union, went overseas, was playing for a team in Europe. And a few months ago, it was announced he wanted to start playing rugby league again for a club in Sydney. Now, there was a bit of outrage because we don't want homophobia in sport. The community pushed back. But one of the sponsors kind of made a performative statement saying, we are an inclusive organisation, we don't have discrimination. However, we will leave it up to the sporting authority and the club to sort out. Whereas other sponsors were kind of threatened to walk away. So if you're going to sponsor a sporting organisation, a sporting team, and there's an incident of racism, homophobia and transphobia, where do you stand? Are you going to withdraw your money, withdraw your support, or are you going to say, we'll let this one pass, but just make a performative statement? If you look at sporting stars who had their their sponsorship contracts cancelled because they've made a racist comment, they've made a homophobic comment, we know where the company stands. Do you stand with the community, or are you just there to make money and make performative statements from time to time?
Absolutely. What role, I mean, Neelam, do you see employees playing, in creating safe spaces to work? Because when it comes to employers, I mean, they come up with charters. I mean, human resources and diversity tend to work hand in hand. But when it comes to the employees, when it comes to sales, marketing, operations, and the other departments, how do you see employees cooperating in this?
I think employees genuinely make all the difference to make this sustainable and to make this long term. Because if we don't have employees in sync, if employees do not believe in what the leader is saying or what your HR is proposing to do, there's no way that this is going to sail. In some of the experiences that we've had, and it's actually quite interesting. We're often told that the support staff, in the sense those who are involved in things like housekeeping, your admin services, probably people who may not be as well educated. As a society, we're often told that they're probably people who are not well educated, so they may not be as inclusive. But that sort of an employee base has been one of our, biggest champion in the work that we're doing. We've seen that people who've joined these kind of jobs at the support and admin services level have been massively not just accepted, but felt included. And I think that comes from a place of being vulnerable. That comes from a place of being extremely empathetic. So I feel like that sort of an employee base, in all senses, has been very inclusive from the heart. And then we talk about the larger, corporate workforce as well, right? I feel like mainly because of the whole emphasis on policies and how it becomes a top-down approach, sometimes these things happen on a very superficial level. The genuine acceptance is missing because you may accept a transgender person with you as a colleague, but do you invite that person for a lunch? Do you hang out with that person just like how you hang out with anybody else in your team?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And those things make all the difference, because that's what's going to ensure that that person will grow in the organization, right? Because not everybody can sustain in a place where they don't feel like home. And I think, to make those changes, I think employees need to be exposed to a lot more human realities. They need to be open, exposed to a lot more experiments and things like that, and not just one workshop that tells them that, hey, you're supposed to be inclusive. They need to feel inclusion at all levels. And for those people who are troublemakers, we have policies to take care of them. But I think I am optimistic that most people want to do good and want to be good, but we just need to show them the right way of doing this. So yeah, I don't think it's a very bad situation, at least in the corporate India. Things are much better in terms of employees accepting and really being inclusive.
That's amazing. I think similar, even the sporting world, Martin. I mean, how open are straight people? When they come to know that they're going to play a boxing match with a gay, for example.
So what, a gay person?
A gay person.
Okay, so what I will say, when I came up with the idea of the World Gay Boxing Championships, it was my straight friends, ally friends, that said, here's how you can make it happen. I approached Boxing Australia, which is the peak body for amateur boxing in this country, an email, a Zoom call, another email, and then I get a message from the CEO said the board of Boxing Australia are welcoming you and want support to make this happen. And I've become very close friends with the president of New South Wales Boxing, and they want to help this event happen. They want to help design a program which is inclusive of people with diverse genders and sexualities, can help provide the referees and judges. I describe it as friends have not yet met, but as I said, let's hold an inclusive boxing competition. It's like, where do I sign up in terms of helping you do this? So there's been great love from the Australian boxing community. And I approached every single, boxing is complicated because you have the amateur, but you also have the different world bodies. And I approached what I consider like the 5 world boxing bodies. And I've had beautiful support from the World Boxing Council, International Boxing Organization, had a beautiful conversation with the president, Mr. Ed Levine, had a beautiful letter recently from the president of the World Boxing Association, and a statement from the World Boxing Organization. And I will call out the International Boxing Federation after 4 months of trying to contact them, calling early in the morning, email, to then get a message back saying, we are unable to provide you with a statement of support at this time, and we'll let you know should we be in a position to provide you with a statement of support. So my point is, I've had great support welcoming the international LGBTQI boxing community from the amateur bodies and 4 of the 5 major world bodies. So focus on the relationships that welcome you, but also give back to the sport, give back to the sporting community to make it happen. Because when you start changing hearts and minds, and I talk about disrupting homophobia, disrupting racism, disrupting transphobia, etc., through inclusion and participation. Because if you wait to be invited, you may join. You just start doing it anyway. People are going to see what you do, love what you do, and will want to help you do it and join you in doing it too.
So while there's fatigue in the system, things look better, things are changing for the good. And one last question before we kind of wrap up. I know that we're kind of going overboard. How can we be better allies? Is there something that you want to share with the audience? Martin and then Neelam.
To be an ally, mean it, please. The hardest thing is when we get, and I said these performative statements. I mean, when you're making a statement saying you're inclusive of LGBTQI plus people, you're being visibly anti-racist, you're being visibly anti-homophobic, you're being visibly anti-transphobic, mean it. But basically, if you hear somebody making homophobic comments, please say something, speaking up. That makes a difference. Otherwise, you're leaving up to people like me to sort the problem out. As a victim of homophobia, it is not my job to sort out hatred. It's my job to try and make the world a more inclusive place. So if you're going to be an ally, visibly be an ally. Otherwise, just don't say anything at all, and you're part of the problem. Are you going to be complicit in hatred? Or are you part of the solution? Do you truly want to be our friends? Be our friends.
And Neelam?
I love what you said, Martin. I think that really is what we should be doing. For me personally, I think I didn't. I mean, I think as someone who grew up with a lot of privilege, I think I didn't really think about it while growing up. I didn't know the kind of privileges I was surrounded with. So cisgender heterosexual people enjoy way too many privileges that most other people communities don't have. And if you want to do one thing as an ally is to take those privileges and translate it into action. Do something about it. My privilege could let me have an organization that can create job opportunities. My privilege could let me knock into corporate spaces, which actually isn't as easy for a transgender person to just walk in and say, hey, I want jobs for my people, right? And acknowledging your privileges, using that in the right place. But keep in mind that it's not about me at the end of the day. It is an organizational effort, and it is about the people and the communities that we're working with and we're working for. So just, be very humble at the same time, but use your privileges to do the best that you can, in the most positive way possible. So yeah, that's about it.
I would like to add, I love that comment, Neelam, when we were talking about privileges. As a white gay man, I do not have to face racism and discrimination that LGBTQI plus people of color experience. And I think it's important to also highlight there are prejudices within the community and diversity within the community. So it's important that I use my privilege as a white person to speak out against things like racism and be visibly anti-racist and to be an ally to other people. You say, I have gay friends, my husband's black, so I have black friends, I have Indian friends. Well, that's not a get out of jail free card. If you're going to be a friend all the time, not part of the time.
Absolutely. Oh, I think the two of you have made some amazing points, and I think judging people is a very personal thing. I mean, we either go with the flow and be like the others, or we appreciate people's identity because we love ourselves and we love people. On this note, I think we're going a little bit overboard. So, in conclusion, I mean, while we have so many more questions and we'll have a lot more questions pouring in from the audience, I would like to thank the two of you for sharing your stories, for sharing such amazing insights. This is more of a lived experience and a purpose-driven thing. The fact that, everything that we're doing with a purpose and we love what we're doing. So thank you once again for sharing your stories. I genuinely want to wish you, the two of you, all the very best in your mission. DIFEST is more than happy and more than delighted to support you in whatever way we can. And yes, I mean, blessings, good wishes for the future. And Martin and Neelam, thank you once again, and please continue to stay safe.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to you and the entire team for having us.
A pleasure.
Yeah.
Pleasure. Thank you.